Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her command chair aboard the UES Defiant, watching the stars move slowly past the main window. The ship was quiet during the night shift. Most of her crew was sleeping. Only the essential staff stayed awake to watch. The ship's systems and scanned for any problems. Elena liked these quiet hours. They gave her time to think. The Defiant was on patrol duty along the outer rim, the edge of human space where strange things sometimes happened. Pirates, smugglers, and worse things moved in the darkness between stars. The Defiant was not a big ship. She was a frigate built for exploring new worlds and fighting small battles. Her hull was gray metal, scratched and dented from years of service. Inside, she carried 847 people. Most were scientists, engineers, and support crew. Only about 200 were actual soldiers. Elena had been the captain for 3 years now. She was 38 years old, with short black hair and dark eyes. That missed nothing. Her crew trusted her because she was fair and smart. She never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. Lieutenant Commander Torres walked up to her chair. He was her second in command, a tall man with graying hair who had served on ships for 20 years. "Captain," he said quietly, "we're getting a transmission. It's coming from the Altarian system." Elena turned to look at him. The Altarians were a peaceful people who lived on 3 worlds near the edge of known space. They had blue skin and large eyes, and they spent most of their time studying art and music. They had never hurt anyone. "Put it through," Elena said. The main screen flickered, and a blue face appeared. It was an Altarian woman, her large eyes wide with fear. Behind her, Elena could see smoke and flashing lights. "Please," the woman said, her voice shaking. "If anyone can hear this, we need help." They came out of nowhere. "Huge ships, bigger than anything we've ever seen. They're demanding tribute. They want half our food, half our technology, and they want 10,000 of our people as slaves." Elena's hands gripped the arms of her chair. She knew what this meant. Only one group in the galaxy made demands like that. "They call themselves the Krithik Hegemony," the woman continued. "They gave us 12 hours to decide. If we refuse, they say they will kill everyone on all 3 worlds. Please, if anyone receives this ... The transmission cut to static. Elena stared at the empty screen, her mind racing. Torres leaned close to her. "Captain, should I contact Fleet Command? Request backup?" Elena knew what he was thinking. The Krithik Hegemony was the most feared empire in the galaxy. For 300 years, they had conquered world after world. Their ships were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. Their weapons could turn an entire planet to glass in minutes. No one had ever successfully fought the Krithik. When their black ships appeared at the edge of a star system, worlds surrendered immediately. Those who tried to resist were destroyed so completely that nothing remained but space dust. The Krithik were not just conquerors. They were terrorists. They made examples of worlds that defied them. They would kill billions of innocent people just to send a message to others. Surrender or die. Elena had read the reports. The Threx Collective had tried to fight them 50 years ago. The Krithak had not just destroyed their military. They had hunted down every Threx colony, every space station, every ship, an entire species wiped out in 6 months. The Zephyrian Empire had been next. They were proud warriors with powerful fleets. They had lasted 8 months before their homeworld was cracked in half by Krithik planet killers, one by one. Every civilization in the galaxy had learned the same lesson. You could surrender to the Krithik and live as slaves, or you could fight them and die. "Captain?" Torres asked again. "Your orders?" Elena looked at the tactical display. The Altarian system was 6 hours away at maximum speed. Even if she sent a message to Fleet Command right now, it would take days for reinforcements to arrive. By then, the Altarians would be dead or in chains. She thought about the woman in the transmission. The fear in her eyes, the smoke behind her. Somewhere out there, millions of innocent people were waiting to learn if they would live or die. "How long since we lost contact?" Elena asked. 14 minutes ago, the communications officer reported. Elena did the math in her head. The Krithak had given the Altarians 12 hours. If the transmission had been sent near the end of that time, they might already be too late. But if it had been sent early, there might still be time. Captain, Torres said quietly, the Defiant is a good ship, but we're just one frigate. The reports say the Krythok travel in fleets of 50 or more ships. Each one of their destroyers outguns us 10 to 1. Their battleships are even worse. Elena knew he was right. In terms of pure firepower, it would be like a single soldier trying to fight an entire army. The smart thing to do would be to send a message to Fleet Command and wait for backup. The safe thing to do would be to stay away from the Altarian system until the big ships arrived. But Elena also knew something else. She knew that sometimes doing the smart thing and the right thing were not the same thing. She stood up from her chair and walked to the main window. Outside, the stars looked peaceful and distant. But she knew that somewhere among those points of light, people were dying. People who had never hurt anyone, who just wanted to live their lives in peace. Elena had joined the Earth Defense Force 20 years ago because she believed in protecting innocent people. She had taken an oath to defend those who could not defend themselves. That oath did not have any exceptions for when the enemy was too strong or when the odds were too bad. Torres, she said, still looking out at the stars, how long would it take us to reach the Altarian system? 6 hours at maximum speed, Captain. And how long would it take a message to reach Fleet Command and for them to send reinforcements? Torres was quiet for a moment. Minimum of 4 days, Captain. Probably longer, Elena nodded. She had known that would be the answer. She turned to face her bridge crew. They were all looking at her, waiting for her decision. She could see the fear in their eyes. They knew what the Krythek could do, but she could also see something else. Trust. Her crew trusted her to make the right choice, even if it was not the easy choice. Lieutenant Parker, Elena said to her navigation officer, plot a course for the Altarian system, maximum speed. Parker looked surprised. Captain, are you sure, the Krythek? I know what they are, Elena said calmly. Set the course. Torres stepped closer to her. Captain, with all due respect, this could be suicide. We have 847 people on this ship. Do we have the right to risk all their lives for people we've never met? Elena looked at him. Torres was a good officer and a good friend. He was not a coward. He was just being practical. Torres, she said, do you remember why you joined the Defense Force? To protect Earth and human colonies, he replied. And do you remember the motto of the Defense Force? Torres was quiet for a moment. Then he said, no one fights alone. That's right, Elena said. No one fights alone. That doesn't just mean humans, that means anyone who needs help. Anyone who can't protect themselves. She turned to address the entire bridge crew. I know what I'm asking. I know the risks. If anyone wants to object, now is the time. This is not an order, this is a choice. The bridge was silent for several seconds, then Torres stepped forward. Captain, he said, I've served with you for 3 years. If you think this is the right thing to do, then I trust your judgment. One by one, the other officers voiced their agreement. Elena felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride because her crew was willing to follow her into danger. Sadness because she might be leading them all to their deaths. Parker, she said, engage maximum speed. All hands, prepare for combat. This is not a drill. The Defiant's engines roared to life, pushing the ship toward the Altarian system. Elena sat back down in her command chair and watched the stars begin to move faster, past the window. She knew the odds, one ship against an entire Krythek fleet. Her crew knew the odds too. But sometimes the odds did not matter. Sometimes you had to stand up to bullies, even when you knew would probably lose. Elena had read the historical records. She knew that humans had a long history of fighting impossible battles. Sometimes they won, sometimes they lost, but they always fought when innocent people needed help. 6 hours to destination, Parker reported. Elena nodded. 6 hours to prepare for the biggest fight of her life. 6 hours to figure out how one small ship could stand against the terror of the galaxy. She did not know how they would win. She was not even sure they could win. But she knew one thing for certain. They were going to try. Supreme Commander Vorthak stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Darkness. The ship was massive, stretching 5 kilometers from bow to stern. Its black hull absorbed light, making it look like a hole in space itself. Inside, thousands of Krithek warriors worked at their stations, preparing for another easy conquest. Vorthak was 8 feet tall with a body covered in black chitinous armor. His species had evolved from creatures similar to earth insects, but much larger and more intelligent. His 4 arms moved constantly as he worked, and his compound eyes could see in multiple directions at once. The Krithek had been conquering the galaxy for 300 years. In all that time, Vorthak had never seen a species that did not surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Fear was the greatest weapon in the universe. It was cheaper than bullets and more effective than bombs. "Status report," Vorthak commanded, his voice a harsh clicking sound that his translator converted to standard galactic. "The Altarian fleet has withdrawn to their inner system," reported his tactical officer. 12 small ships, barely armed. They pose no threat. Vorthak's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. Of course they pose no threat. No one poses a threat to the hegemony. The Krithek fleet consisted of 53 ships. The smallest were destroyers, each one capable of wiping out an entire planetary defense force. The largest were dreadnoughts. Like the Eternal Darkness, mobile fortresses that could crack planets in half, Vorthak had used this same fleet to conquer 17 systems in the past 2 years. The pattern was always the same. Jump into a system, make demands, wait for surrender. Sometimes a species would try to negotiate or ask for more time. Vorthak would destroy one of their colonies as an example. After that, they always surrendered. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we have received a response from the Altarian government. They are requesting more time to consider our terms." Vorthak's eyes glowed red with anger. "More time? We gave them 12 hours. That is more generous than most species receive. What are your orders, sir?" Vorthak thought for a moment. The Altarians had 3 worlds. The smallest had only a few million inhabitants. Destroying it would send the right message without significantly reducing the slave workforce they could harvest from the other 2 planets. "Target the 3rd planet," Vorthak ordered. "Prepare planet killer missiles. We will give them a demonstration of what happens to those who waste our time." The weapons officer began entering targeting coordinates. Planet killer missiles were Vorthak's favorite tool for making examples. They did not just destroy cities or continents. They cracked the entire planet's crust, creating massive volcanic eruptions that would kill every living thing on the surface. Missiles. "Armed and ready, sir. Fire when ready." But before the weapons officer could launch the missiles, the sensor operator made an urgent report. "Sir, we have a new contact dropping out of hyperspace. Single vessel, unknown class." Vorthak barely glanced at the tactical display. "Identify it and destroy it. We do not have time for interruptions." "Sir, the ship appears to be human." That got Vorthak's attention. Humans were a young species that had only discovered faster-than-light travel about a century ago. They had established a small cluster of colonies in one corner of the galaxy, but they were careful to avoid Krithek territory. "Smart of them. What is a human ship doing here?" Vorthak asked. "Unknown, sir. It appears to be a frigate-class vessel. Light armament, minimal shielding. Crew complement estimated at 800. Vorthak studied the tactical display more carefully. The human ship was indeed small and lightly armed. It posed no threat to his fleet, but its presence here was puzzling. Humans were known to be cautious. They did not usually interfere in other species' affairs. "Sir, the human vessel is approaching our position," the sensor operator reported. "Approaching? Are they requesting safe passage?" "No, sir. No communications from the vessel. But their course and speed suggest they are moving to engage." Vorthak's mandibles clicked again, but this time with confusion rather than amusement. "Engage? A single frigate against our entire fleet?" He looked at the display again. The human ship was indeed moving toward his fleet at high speed. Either the humans had gone insane or they had some kind of secret weapon. "Scan that ship thoroughly," Vorthak ordered. "I want to know what they are hiding." The sensor operator worked for several minutes before reporting back. "Sir, scans show a standard human frigate. No unusual energy signatures, no hidden weapons systems. The ship appears to be exactly what it seems. Then they are insane," Vorthak concluded. "Put me through to their captain. I will give them one chance to surrender before we destroy them." The communications officer opened a channel. Vorthak's image appeared on the screen of the human ship, and the human captain's image appeared on his screen. The human was a female, smaller than most. Humans Vorthak had seen in intelligence reports. She had dark hair and eyes that seemed to look right through him. She sat calmly in her command chair, showing no signs of fear. "Human vessel," Vorthak said. "You have entered a restricted military zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The human captain looked at him for a long moment before responding. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Defiant. You will cease your attack on the Altarian system and withdraw your fleet immediately." Vorthak stared at the screen in shock. In 300 years of conquest, no one had ever given him an ultimatum. The audacity was so complete that for a moment he could not even respond. His bridge crew was equally stunned. Several officers stopped working to stare at the screen. The sensor operator's compound eyes were wide with disbelief. "Did that creature just give us an order?" the tactical officer asked. Vorthak found his voice. "Human, you are either very brave or very stupid. You have one ship, we have 53. Your weapons are toys compared to ours. Your shields could not stop a single shot from our smallest destroyer." Captain Vasquez's expression did not change. "I'm aware of the numbers. My offer stands. Withdraw or face the consequences." "Consequences?" Vorthak's voice rose to a shriek. "What consequences could you possibly threaten us with?" Instead of answering, the human captain cut the communication channel. Vorthak stared at the blank screen, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. "Sir," the tactical officer said, "should we destroy them now?" Vorthak was about to give the order when something unprecedented happened. The human ship opened fire. The Defiant's weapons were indeed small compared to Krithak firepower, but they were firing with impossible precision. Instead of trying to damage the massive Krithak ships, they were targeting specific systems. Communication arrays, sensor clusters, shield generators. "Sir, they're jamming our communications with the Altarian government," the communications officer reported. "And they've knocked out 3 of our long-range sensors," added the sensor operator. Vorthak watched the tactical display in growing amazement. The human ship was moving between his vessels with incredible skill, dodging return fire and continuing its precise attacks. It was like watching a small bird fly through a forest of giants too quick and agile to be caught. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel," Vorthak ordered. Dozens of energy beams and missile salvos converged on the Defiant's position. But the human ship seemed to anticipate every attack. It would accelerate just as missiles reached its previous position or roll to avoid energy beams that should have destroyed it. "How are they doing this?" Vorthak demanded. "Unknown, sir. Their ship appears to have enhanced maneuvering capabilities beyond standard human technology." "Then they do have secret weapons." "Not weapons, sir. The ship itself appears standard, but their tactical system seems far more advanced than our intelligence reports suggested." Vorthak watched as the human ship continued its impossible dance through his fleet. It was not trying to destroy his ships, he realized. It was disabling them piece by piece, system by system. "Sir, the destroyer Venom reports that its main weapons array is offline. The cruiser Death's Edge has lost its navigation system. Sir, our own shield generators are fluctuating. The humans seem to know exactly where to hit us." Vorthak's confidence was beginning to crack. This was not how battles were supposed to go. Enemy ships were supposed to flee or be destroyed quickly. They were not supposed to dance through his fleet like they owned it. Sir, the sensor operator said, his voice shaking. I'm detecting some kind of probe launched from the human vessel. A probe? What kind of probe? Unknown, sir. It's very small and moving very fast. It seems to be heading directly for us. Vorthak looked at the tactical display. A tiny dot was indeed moving toward his flagship. It was so small that it barely registered on sensors. Destroy it, he ordered. Several destroyers opened fire on the probe, but it was too small and too fast. It weaved through the weapon's fire and continued toward the eternal darkness. Sir, the probe has reached our hull. It appears to have attached itself to the outer armor. What is it doing? Unknown, sir. It's not exploding. It seems to be scanning us. Vorthak felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. A scanning probe that could penetrate their defenses meant the humans could learn things about Krithik technology. But why would they need to scan his ships when they were about to be destroyed? Unless they were not about to be destroyed. Sir, the tactical officer reported, the human ship is moving to a new position. They're still avoiding all our weapons fire. Vorthak stared at the display. The human ship had been under constant fire from his entire fleet for 10 minutes. By all rights, it should have been destroyed several times over. But it was still moving, still fighting, still somehow staying ahead of every attack. Sir, the probe is transmitting something. It appears to be sending data back to the human ship. What kind of data? Ship specifications, tactical capabilities, crew numbers. Sir, it's downloading our entire tactical database. Vorthak's blood turned to ice. The humans were not just fighting his fleet, they were studying it. Learning everything about how it worked, how it was organized, how it could be defeated. But that was impossible. No one could penetrate Krithik security systems. Their computers were protected by quantum encryption that no species had ever broken. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving another transmission from the human captain. Put it through. Captain Vasquez appeared on the screen again. She looked exactly as calm as before, as if the last 10 minutes of impossible combat had been nothing more than a training exercise. Supreme Commander Vorthak, she said, I believe we need to talk. Vorthak stared at her, his mind reeling. How do you know my name? Elena Vasquez smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Vorthak had ever seen. Commander, we know a lot more about you than you think. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the massive Krithek fleet on her main screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency. No one spoke loudly or moved quickly. They all knew that everything depended. On the next few minutes, Elena had spent years studying the Krithek. She knew their tactics, their psychology, their weaknesses. The most important thing she had learned was that they were bullies, and bullies only understood one thing, strength. Torres, she said quietly to her second in command, are all systems ready? Yes, Captain. All departments report ready for Phase 2. Elena nodded. Phase 1 had been the demonstration. Now came the real test. She opened a communication channel to the entire Krithek fleet. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Defiant, she said, her voice clear and steady. You have exactly 60 seconds to withdraw from this system before I make you. The bridge of the Krithek flagship fell completely silent. Elena could see Supreme Commander Vorthak on her screen, his compound eyes wide with shock. Behind him, his crew had stopped working to stare at the transmission. Elena understood their confusion. For 300 years, no one had ever threatened the Krithek. No one had ever spoken to them as equals. They were used to being the ones who made demands and issued ultimatums. Did that human just threaten us? Vorthak's tactical officer whispered loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Elena kept her expression completely neutral. She had practiced this moment in front of a mirror many times. Her face showed no fear, no doubt, no hesitation. She looked like someone stating a simple fact rather than making a desperate bluff. You are outnumbered 50-1, Vorthak snarled, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. Your ship is insignificant, your weapons are primitive. You will surrender now or be destroyed. Elena glanced at the chronometer on her screen. 45 seconds. The simple statement hit the Krithek bridge like a physical blow. Vorthek stepped back from his communication console, his mandibles clicking rapidly. Elena had read in the intelligence files that rapid mandible clicking was a sign of extreme stress in Krithek. Sir, Vorthek's sensor operator reported, the human ship is changing position again. They're moving closer to our formation. Elena was indeed moving the Defiant closer to the Krithek fleet. It was a calculated risk. The closer she got, the easier it would be for them to hit her. But it also made her threat more immediate and more real. 30 seconds, Elena said. Vorthek's compound eyes were focused entirely on her now. Elena could see the confusion in them, and something else she had hoped to see, fear, not fear of her weapons or her ship, but fear of the unknown. Fear of something he did not understand. This is impossible, Vorthek muttered. Humans are a weak species. You have no great fleets, no planet killers, no conquest history. You should be cowering before us. Elena allowed herself a small smile. You're right about one thing, Commander. We're not conquerors, we're protectors. Protectors? Vorthek laughed, but the sound was forced and nervous. You cannot protect anyone. You are one ship against our entire fleet. 20 seconds. Elena's communication officer looked up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting communication attempts between Krithek ships. They're trying to coordinate something. Jam their frequencies, Elena ordered calmly, within seconds. The Krithek fleet lost the ability to communicate with each other. Elena watched as confusion spread through their formation. Ships began moving independently, some trying to get closer to the Defiant, others pulling back to safer positions. Sir, Vorthek's communication officer reported with panic in his voice. We've lost contact with the rest of the fleet. The humans are jamming all our frequencies. Vorthek spun to face his tactical officer. How is that possible? Our communication systems are quantum encrypted. No one can break our codes. Unknown, sir, but all our channels are filled with interference. Elena continued her countdown. 15 seconds. She could see Vorthek's crew becoming more nervous with each passing moment. They kept glancing at their instruments, at each other, at their commander. None of them understood what was happening, and fear of the unknown was spreading through their ranks like a disease. Sir, the sensor operator said, the human probe attached to our hull is still transmitting. It's sending data packets to their ship every few seconds. What kind of data? Everything, sir. Ship schematics, weapon capabilities, crew locations, tactical procedures. It's like it has access to our entire computer network. Vorthek's exoskeleton began to shake. Elena could see sweat forming on his carapace. The idea that a simple human probe could penetrate all their security systems was destroying his confidence. 10 seconds, Elena said. Double quote, sir. What are your orders? Vorthek's tactical officer asked. Vorthek opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He was a creature used to being in complete control, used to having overwhelming advantages in every situation. Now he faced something he had never encountered before, an enemy who showed no fear. Sir? The tactical officer asked again. 5 seconds, Elena said. Vorthek finally found his voice. All ships, prepare to fire. Destroy that human vessel immediately. But before his fleet could respond, something happened that changed everything. The space around the Krithek formation suddenly erupted with new contacts, dozens of them, appearing on sensors all at once. Sir, new contacts appearing throughout the system, the sensor operator shouted. Multiple vessels, unknown classes, unknown origins. Elena's smile grew wider. Time's up, Commander. Vorthek stared at his tactical display in horror. The new contacts were not ships in the traditional sense. They were smaller, stealthier, harder to track. Some appeared to be drones. Others looked like automated weapons platforms. Still, others were unlike anything in the Krithek database. Where did they come from? Vorthek demanded. Unknown, sir. They seem to have been hiding throughout the system. Cloaked or powered down. We never detected them. Elena opened the communication channel again. Commander Vorthek, I think you're beginning to understand your situation. The ship you've been fighting for the last 15 minutes was not alone. It was never alone. Vorthak's legs gave out, and he collapsed into his command chair. Around him, his crew stared at their instruments. In shock, the tactical display showed that they were completely surrounded by human forces. "But this is impossible," Vorthak whispered. "Our intelligence report said humans had only a small fleet. Merchant ships and patrol vessels, nothing like this." "Your intelligence reports were wrong," Elena said simply. "Did you really think we would broadcast our true military capabilities to the galaxy? Did you think we would make it easy for species like you to know how to attack us?" Elena walked closer to her main screen, making her image larger on Vorthak's display. "Let me explain something to you, Commander. Humans have been watching you for 73 years. We've studied every world you've conquered, every tactic you've used, every threat you've made. We know everything about you." "That's impossible. We've never encountered human forces before today." "Of course you haven't encountered us." "We didn't want you to encounter us. We wanted you to think we were weak and harmless while we prepared for this moment." Elena gestured to someone off-screen, and her tactical officer stepped into view. "Show him," she said. The tactical officer activated a holographic display that appeared in the air between Elena and the screen. It showed detailed schematics of every ship in the Krithak fleet, complete with structural weak points, weapon specifications, and crew layouts. "We know the armor thickness on every one of your ships," Elena continued. "We know the reload time of every weapon system. We know the escape pod locations and the bridge layouts. We even know which ships have the least experienced crews." Vorthak stared at the holographic display, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the schematics. "How could you possibly know all this?" "Because we've been watching you, Commander. Every battle you've fought, every world you've conquered, every ship you've built. We've had observation posts monitoring your activities for decades. We've intercepted your communications, analyzed your technology, studied your tactics." Elena's expression hardened. "We've also documented your crimes. Every innocent person you've killed, every world you've enslaved, every civilization you've destroyed. We have complete records of all of it." "Sir," Vorthak's tactical officer whispered, "what should we do?" Vorthak could not answer. His mind was reeling from the revelations. Everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. They were not weak. They were not harmless. They had been preparing for this confrontation for decades, Elena continued speaking, her voice calm but filled with authority. "You see, Commander, humans have a particular hatred for bullies. We don't like species that prey on the innocent. We don't like empires that rule through terror. And we especially don't like creatures who think they can threaten peaceful worlds without consequences." "But you're just one species," Vorthak protested weakly. "We've conquered hundreds of worlds. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy." "Had?" Elena corrected. "You had the largest fleet in the galaxy. But fleets are only as strong as the will to use them. And right now, Commander, I don't think your crews are feeling very confident." She was right. Vorthak could see the fear on his bridge crew's faces. The same expression was probably visible on every Krithak ship in the fleet. They had gone from predators to prey in a matter of minutes. "What do you want?" Vorthak asked. "I want you to withdraw your fleet from this system immediately. I want you to release all the slaves you've taken from previous conquests. And I want you to send a message to every world in the galaxy telling them that the age of Krithak terror is over. And if we refuse," Elena's smile disappeared completely, "then you'll discover what happens when humans stop being patient and start being angry." The communication channel filled with static for a moment, and when it cleared, Elena was no longer alone on the screen. Behind her, Vorthak could see other human officers. All of them looked calm, professional, and absolutely determined. "You have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal," Elena said. "After that, we stop asking nosely." The transmission ended, leaving Vorthak staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that he was no longer sure he could give. For the first time in 300 years, the Krithak hegemony faced an enemy that refused to be intimidated. And Vorthak was beginning to realize that all the firepower in the galaxy meant nothing against an opponent who simply would not back down. Supreme Commander Vorthak sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. The hour that Captain Vasquez had given him was almost over. Around him, his bridge crew worked in tense silence. Every few minutes, someone would look up at him, waiting for orders that he still could not give. The Krithik fleet remained in formation around the Altarian system, but everything had changed. What had started as a routine conquest had become something else entirely. Vorthak could feel the confidence draining from his crews with each passing minute. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving requests for orders from the other ships in the fleet. The captains want to know what we're doing." Vorthak did not answer immediately. He was thinking about everything the human captain had told him. The claim seemed impossible, but the evidence was right there on his sensors. Dozens of human vessels surrounding his fleet, advanced technology that his intelligence services had missed completely, detailed knowledge of Krithik capabilities that should have been secret. "Sir?" the communications officer asked again. "Tell them to maintain position," Vorthak said finally. "No one is to take any action without my direct orders." The truth was that Vorthak did not know what to do. In 300 years of conquest, the Krithak had never faced a situation like this. They had always been the ones with superior numbers and technology. They had always been the ones making threats and demands. "Sir, the human probe attached to our hull is still active," the sensor operator reported. "It's continuing to transmit data to their ship." "What kind of data?" "Everything, sir. It seems to have complete access to our computer systems. Ship blueprints, crew records, tactical databases, even personal files." Vorthak's compound eyes widened. "Personal files?" "Yes, sir, including yours." The implications of this hit Vorthak like a physical blow. The humans did not just know about his ships and weapons. They knew about him personally. His history, his tactics, his psychological profile, they had studied him like a laboratory specimen. "Sir," the tactical officer said, "incoming transmission from the human vessel. Put it through." Captain Vasquez appeared on the main screen again. This time she was not alone. Several other human officers stood behind her, all wearing the same calm, professional expressions. "Commander Vorthak," she said, "your hour is almost up. Have you made your decision?" Vorthak looked at her carefully. The human captain showed no signs of stress or fatigue. She looked like someone who had everything under control, someone who knew exactly how this situation was going to end. "Captain Vasquez," Vorthak said, "you have made some impressive demonstrations. But you are still outnumbered. My fleet has 53 ships. Your forces, even with the hidden vessels, cannot match our firepower." Elena nodded as if she had expected this response. "You're absolutely right, Commander. In a straight fight, your fleet would probably win." "But who said anything about a straight fight?" She gestured to someone off-screen, and a new image appeared on Vorthak's display. It was a star chart showing the entire Krithak Empire. Dozens of star systems were marked in red. "What you're looking at," Elena explained, "is a real-time display of every Krithak military installation, shipyard, and command center in the galaxy, all marked and targeted." Vorthak stared at the display in growing horror. The red marks covered systems throughout Krithak space, including some that were supposed to be secret. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Some of those locations are classified at the highest levels. Only the Supreme Council knows about them." "The Supreme Council and us," Elena said simply. "We've been watching you for 73 years, Commander. Did you think we were only watching your conquest fleets?" Elena's tactical officer stepped forward and activated another display. This one showed detailed images of Krithak installations, shipyards where new vessels were being built, command centers where strategies were planned, training facilities where new warriors were prepared. "We know the location of every major Krithak facility," the tactical officer explained. "We know their defenses, their personnel, their strategic importance. And we have assets positioned near all of them. Vorthek's breathing became rapid and shallow. Assets? Observation posts, automated weapons platforms, infiltration units, Elena listed calmly. Some have been in place for decades. Others were positioned more recently. All of them are currently armed and ready. You're bluffing, Vorthek said. But his voice lacked conviction. Elena smiled, that same terrifying smile from before. Am I? Let me show you something. The display changed again, this time showing a live feed from a Krithek shipyard 300 light-years away. Massive ships under construction were visible in the docking bays. Thousands of workers moved around the facility like insects. This is the Vorth Prime shipyard, Elena said. Your most important military construction facility. The place where your newest dreadnoughts are built. Vorthek knew the facility well. It was where his own flagship had been constructed. The security there was supposed to be perfect. Watch carefully, Elena said on the display. A small explosion appeared near one of the construction bays. It was not large enough to cause serious damage, but it was clearly visible. Workers began running toward the area, and alarms started. Flashing, a small demonstration, Elena explained. Just to prove that we can reach any target we choose. The next explosion can be much larger. Vorthek's hands gripped the arms of his command chair so tightly that his claws left marks in the metal. How did you get explosives into Vorth Prime? The security there is impenetrable. Commander, you still don't understand. We've been preparing for this war since the first time we learned about the Krithek hegemony. Every facility you've built. In the last 70 years, we found a way to monitor and target. Elena walked closer to her screen, making her image larger on Vorthek's display. Did you know that 17% of your supply ships are actually operated by human agents? Did you know that 43 of your supposedly secure communication networks have been compromised? Did you know that we have detailed psychological profiles of over 2,000 Krithek officers, including you? That's impossible, Vorthek protested. Our security services would have detected infiltration on that scale. Your security services did detect some of our operations, Elena admitted. But humans are very good at learning from their mistakes. Every time you caught one of our agents, we studied your methods and improved our techniques. Every time you found one of our monitoring devices, we built better ones. Elena's expression became more serious. You see, Commander, the Krithek hegemony made one critical error. You assumed that because humans appeared weak, we actually were weak. You assumed that because we avoided confrontation, we were afraid of you. You never considered that we might be biding our time, waiting for the right moment to act. Sir, Vorthek's sensor operator called out urgently, I'm detecting energy signatures from multiple human vessels. They appear to be charging weapons. Systems, Elena nodded. That's correct. My fleet is preparing to engage your forces. But before we begin, I want to make sure you understand the full scope of what you're facing. The display changed once more, this time showing a three-dimensional map of the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Krithek positions, while blue dots marked human forces. To Vorthek's shock, there were blue dots everywhere. Not just around the Altarian system, but throughout Krithek space. For the past 20 years, Elena explained, we've been positioning forces throughout your empire. Stealth ships, automated platforms, infiltration teams. Some are designed for intelligence gathering, others are weapons of war. Vorthek counted the blue dots on the display. There were hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. This is your real choice, Commander, Elena continued. You can order your fleet to attack my ship, and we'll fight. Your ships are powerful, and some of my people will die. But while we're fighting here, every Krithek installation in the galaxy will come under attack simultaneously. You wouldn't dare, Vorthek said. The casualties would be enormous. The casualties from your 300 years of conquest have been enormous, Elena replied coldly. Billions of innocent people killed or enslaved. Entire civilizations wiped. Out, all because you believe that might makes right. Elena paused, letting her words sink in. But you're right about one thing. I don't want unnecessary casualties. That's why I'm offering you a choice. What choice? Surrender now, and your people live. Order your fleet to stand down, agree to release all slaves, and return all conquered territories, and will allow the Krethek to return to their original worlds in peace. Vorthak stared at her. And if we refuse? Elena's expression became stone cold. Then we'll do what we should have done 70 years ago. We'll end the Krethek hegemony permanently. Sir, Vorthak's tactical officer whispered, what are your orders? Vorthak looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for his decision. These were warriors who had served him for years, who had followed him into dozens of battles. Now they were looking at him with fear in their eyes. For 300 years, the Krithek had ruled through terror. They had been the monsters that other species feared. But now they were facing something they had never encountered before. An enemy that had spent decades planning their destruction. Captain Vasquez, Vorthak said slowly, if we surrender, what guarantees do we have that you'll keep your word? The same guarantee you gave to every species you conquered, Elena replied. None. The difference is that humans actually honor our agreements. Elena's communication officer handed her a datapad. She looked at it and nodded. Commander, you have 10 minutes to make your decision. After that, the choice will be taken out of your hands. 10 minutes? In 10 minutes, the Galactic Council will receive a complete recording of this conversation, along with evidence of every Krithek war crime committed in the past 3 centuries. They'll also receive our ultimatum, the Krithek Empire ends today, one way or another. Vorthak felt his world collapsing around him. The humans had not just prepared for military action. They had prepared for political action as well. Once the rest of the galaxy learned that the Krithek could be defeated, every conquered species would rise up in rebellion. You've planned everything, he said in wonder. We've planned for every possibility, Elena confirmed. Humans are very good at planning, Commander. We think ahead. We prepare for problems before they happen. And we never, ever give up when innocent people need our help. Elena looked directly into the camera, and Vorthak felt as if she was looking directly into his soul. 9 minutes, Commander. What's it going to be? Supreme Commander Vorthak closed his compound eyes and took a deep breath. Around him, his bridge crew waited in complete silence. The tactical display still showed the human forces surrounding his fleet, but Vorthak was no longer looking at it. He was thinking about 300 years of Krithek history. His species had become conquerors because they were strong. They had built an empire because they were ruthless. They had ruled the galaxy because everyone else was afraid of them. But now he faced an enemy that was not afraid, and all that strength suddenly felt meaningless. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, 5 minutes remaining. Vorthak opened his eyes and looked at the screen where Captain Vasquez waited patiently. The human captain had not moved or spoken since giving him the ultimatum. She simply stood there, calm and confident, as if the outcome was already decided. Maybe. It was, Captain Vasquez, Vorthak said. I need to know something. If I surrender, what happens to my people? What happens to the Krithek? Elena's expression softened slightly. That depends on what you mean by your people, Commander. If you mean the innocent civilians living on Krithek worlds, nothing happens to them. They'll be free to live their lives in peace. And if you mean the military? Military personnel who committed no war crimes will be allowed to return home. Those who participated in the murder or enslavement of innocent people will stand trial. Vorthak nodded slowly. It was better than he had expected. The humans could have demanded the complete destruction of the Krithek species, and no one in the galaxy would have blamed them. Sir, his tactical officer whispered, the crews are waiting for orders. What should I tell them? Vorthak looked around his bridge one more time. These officers had served him loyally for years. They had followed his orders without question, even when those orders meant destroying entire worlds. Now he had to make a decision that would change everything. Open a channel to the entire fleet, Vorthak ordered. Sir? Do it. The communications officer activated the fleet-wide channel. Now every Krithek ship in the system could hear what their supreme commander was about to say. Warriors of the hegemony, Vorthek began, his voice heavy with exhaustion. For 300 years we have ruled this galaxy through strength and fear. We believe that power gave us the right to take whatever we wanted from weaker species. He paused, looking directly at Captain Vasquez on the screen. Today we have learned that we were wrong. We have encountered a species that does not fear. US, a species that has spent decades preparing for this moment. The humans have shown us that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the will to protect. Vorthak could hear murmurs of confusion from his bridge crew. This was not what they had expected to hear from their commander. I hereby order all Krethek vessels to stand down and prepare for surrender. All weapon systems are to be powered. Down immediately, all shields are to be lowered. We will comply with human demands for the release of all prisoners and slaves. The bridge fell silent. Vorthek's officers stared at him in shock. In the history of the Krethek hegemony, no supreme commander had ever ordered a surrender. Sir, the tactical officer protested, we can still fight. Our ships are powerful. We might be able to break through their forces. Vorthek looked at him sadly. To what end? Even if we escaped this system, what then? The humans have forces positioned throughout our empire. They know the location of every installation, every shipyard, every command center. They could destroy everything we have built in a matter of days. But sir, we are Krethek. We are warriors. We do not surrender. Warriors fight to protect their people, Vorthek replied. If I order this fleet to attack, thousands of Krethek will die here. Millions more will die when the humans retaliate against our worlds. I will not be responsible for the extinction of our species. Vorthek turned back to the screen where Captain Vasquez waited. Captain, I formally surrender my fleet to your forces. We will comply with all your demands, Elena nodded. Thank you, Commander. You've made the right choice. Have I? My people will call me a coward and a traitor. Your people will call you the leader who saved them from extinction, Elena replied. Sometimes the hardest thing a warrior can do is choose peace over pride. Over the next several hours, the Krethek fleet powered down their weapons and allowed human forces to board their ships. The process was surprisingly orderly. Elena had prepared detailed procedures for accepting the surrender, and her crews executed them with professional efficiency. Vorthek found himself in the shuttle bay of the Defiant, surrounded by human guards. He had expected to be treated as a dangerous prisoner, but the humans were respectful and even somewhat kind. They gave him food and water, and they answered his questions about what would happen next. Captain Vasquez came to see him personally. Commander, she said, I wanted to thank you for making the right choice. You saved a lot of lives today. Including my own, Vorthek replied bitterly. There's no shame in choosing to live, especially when it means your people get to live too. Vorthek looked at her curiously. Why are you being so kind to me? I am your enemy. I have conquered worlds and enslaved millions. Elena sat down across from him. Because you're not my enemy anymore. You were the leader of a system that caused great harm, but that system is ending. What matters now is what comes next. And what comes next? That depends partly on you. The galaxy needs to rebuild after 3 centuries of Krethek rule. Conquered worlds need to be freed. Slaves need to be returned to their homes. Damaged civilizations need help recovering. Elena leaned forward. The Krethek know more about the current state of the galaxy than anyone else. You could help with the reconstruction. You could help make things right. Vorthek was quiet for a long moment. You would trust me to help? I would trust you to do what's best for your people and for the galaxy. Today you proved that you can make hard choices when they're the right choices. 3 weeks later, Vorthek stood in the Great Assembly Hall on the neutral world of Centauri Prime. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive chamber. Many of them were species that had been conquered by the Krethek. Some were species that had lived in fear of conquest for centuries. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at a podium in the center of the chamber, addressing the assembled delegates. The Krethek hegemony is formally dissolved, she announced. All conquered territories have been returned to their original governments. All slaves have been freed and are being returned to their homeworlds. War criminals are being processed through the new galactic justice system. Applause filled the chamber. Vorthak could see tears of joy on many faces. For these people, this day represented the end of a long nightmare. But ending the hegemony is only the first step, Elena continued. Now we must build something better. The new galactic cooperative will be based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation rather than fear and domination. She gestured toward Vorthak, who stood with the other delegates. Former Supreme Commander Vorthak has agreed to serve as an advisor to the reconstruction effort. His knowledge of Krithak territories and resources will be invaluable in helping displaced populations return home and rebuild their lives. Some delegates looked surprised that a former Krithak leader would be trusted with such responsibility. Others nodded in approval. The galaxy was ready to move beyond old hatreds. After the ceremony, Vorthak found himself standing on a balcony overlooking the city. Centauri Prime was beautiful, with tall spires reaching toward the sky and gardens filled with plants from a dozen different worlds. Captain Vasquez joined him on the balcony. "How are you feeling about all this?" she asked. "Confused," Vorthak admitted. 3 weeks ago, I commanded the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Now I'm helping the very people I once conquered. Regrets? About surrendering? No, about the 300 years before that, many, Elena nodded. Regret can be useful if it helps you make better choices in the future. Captain, may I ask you something? Of course. How long did you really spend planning this operation? Elena smiled. Officially? 73 years, since we first learned about the Krithak hegemony. And unofficially? Humans have been preparing for something like this since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. We've always known that someday we might encounter species that wanted to harm innocent people. We decided long ago that we wouldn't let that happen if we could prevent it. Vorthak looked at her with something approaching awe. Your species plans very far ahead. We have to. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy or the most advanced or the most numerous, but we're persistent. We don't give up when something is important. And protecting innocent people is important to you. It's the most important thing. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the alien city. Captain, Vorthak said eventually, what happens now? What happens to the galaxy? Elena looked out at the horizon where the first stars were beginning to appear. Now we build something better. A galaxy where species work together instead of conquering each other. A galaxy where conflicts are resolved through negotiation instead of violence. A galaxy where no one has to live in fear. Do you think it will work? Elena smiled. I think it has to work. Because the alternative is going back to the way things were, and nobody wants that. As the stars grew brighter in the darkening sky, Vorthak realized that something had changed inside him. For the first time in his life, he was looking forward to the future instead of trying to conquer it. The age of the Krithak hegemony was over. The age of the galactic cooperative was beginning. And somehow, despite everything, that felt like a victory for everyone. Years later, historians would write about the day that humanity ended 3 centuries of galactic tyranny with a single ship and an unshakable refusal to back down. They would call it the moment when the galaxy learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the courage to stand up for what is right. But Elena Vasquez would remember it more simply. It was the day that humanity kept its promise to protect those who could not protect themselves. And that, she thought, was worth all the planning in the universe.